Hello guys, gals and gamers, welcome back to another video, and today we have an interesting discussion in our hands. We're going to be talking about the future of the Xenoblade Chronicles franchise and what is Monolith going to do with it after finishing the trilogy. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 DLC has finally arrived, and I am not going to spoil it in this video. What I can say is that it has been advertised as a conclusion to the whole Xenoblade trilogy. We have Xenoblade Chronicles 1 with Future Connected. We had Xenoblade Chronicles 2 alongside Torna the Golden Country. Then we finally have Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and its DLC Future Redeemed. And now what a lot of fans are thinking about is really what's going to happen next with Xenoblade Chronicles. And today I want to cover all sorts of possible futures for this franchise. We are going to be covering main games, we're going to be looking at potential spin-offs, we're going to be looking at just Monolith Soft in general, and then we're going to look at Xenoblade Chronicles in other stuff like, hey, maybe a Xenoblade Chronicles film. Who knows, is that likely? Well, I will discuss that later. And of course for this video I'm not thinking so much about the story aspect. I'm not gonna discuss lore, I'm not gonna discuss spoilers for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 DLC. What I want to discuss here is just in general, where is the franchise headed? But that said, let's begin. We're going to be talking about what will still happen with Xenoblade Chronicles 3. So the things that will happen are Xenoblade Chronicles 3 will most likely get some smaller updates, minor bug fixes, and maybe some quality of life stuff for the DLC campaign. I would not expect anything major to be still added to this game. And the other thing that has been confirmed is that Noah and Mio, basically the main characters of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, the base game, not the DLC, have amiibos confirmed. So we will get amiibos for them and possibly some kind of update. What will those amiibos add? We do not know yet, but that is still coming for Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And after that, we're probably gonna see a main game at some point. I do not expect that the Switch will get any more Xenoblade games. The Switch seems to be at the end of its life cycle, and I think we will just have to wait until the next Nintendo console to see what Monolith Soft is cooking up next. But the question is, will it be Xenoblade Chronicles 4? Maybe. I mean, it's totally possible, even though the story of the whole arc has now finished with Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Of all of the previous games, there was an arc, and now it's apparently finished. So it's still possible that Xenoblade Chronicles 4, still like set in the same world or whatever, could just involve new characters and a new story to tell in that universe. But there are other stuff Monolith Soft could do as well. They could, for example, remaster Xenoblade Chronicles X for the Wii U, which is apparently not part of this trilogy, of course, because it's a fourth game. It can't be part of a trilogy with only 3 games. But the interesting thing about Xenoblade Chronicles X that, well, first of all, it was on the Wii U, so it didn't sell that well because it was on the Wii U. And the story is unfinished for that game. The game infamously ended in a cliffhanger, and people have been asking about a port of that game for the Switch, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. But if we are going to get a more powerful system, I think Xenoblade Chronicles X would be definitely a better fit for that one, as the game can be a bit intense when it comes to just running. And for Xenoblade Chronicles X, I would first of all love to see the first game remastered, and then throw in some sort of like future connected extra story to the end to either tie up that story, or a few years later after that one, continue with a sequel, Xenoblade Chronicles X2. And I would just love to see that. Then also another possibility is that Monolith Soft previously worked for Bandai Namco, and they did other Xeno games. They did Xenogears and Xenosaga, and it is possible that those games will get a remaster. But I think that would be more in the hands of Bandai Namco rather than Nintendo and Monolith Soft. At first, I was really debating with myself if this even is possible. I mean, Xenosaga and Xenogears are not exactly that well known of RPGs. They're a bit niche. I know they have their fans, but still very niche. And if it is a niche RPG, that could be a financial risk. But at the same time, Bandai Namco is remaking already another one of Monolith Soft's older games before they were acquired by Nintendo, and that is Baten Kaitos. And that game is even more obscure, if you ask me, than the Xenosaga and Xenogears games. So why remake that game instead of the Xeno games? No idea, but maybe there are some rights issues since Xenosaga and Xenogears were, I think, only on PlayStation, so there could be something there. Hello, me from the editing here. So in this section I was mainly talking about Xenosaga getting remakes, and that is of course still owned by Bandai Namco. I think the relationship between Bandai and Nintendo is really good, and we even got Cosmos from Xenosaga in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So the likelihood of that is kind of likely, but Xenogears is, I think, owned by Square Enix nowadays. It was made by Squaresoft, and the likelihood of that getting a remaster, I think, is a little bit less. But Xenosaga seems to be the more popular choice to get a remaster or a remake, so maybe, we'll see. But maybe someone else more educated than me knows a bit better. It's also possible that Monolith Soft wants to do another Xeno game. This was the Xenoblade Chronicles, now it's time for Xeno Shield stories or something. I don't know. That could definitely say to the audience like, hey, this is not Xenoblade, this is Xeno the new thing. And those could be still a bit connected. I don't know. It's up to Monolith Soft on what they want to do. But I could definitely see them, after this story has concluded, moving on to another type of Xeno game. Just branding the Xeno franchise or something. I don't know. Possible. And the last option, what I think Monolith Soft could do, is just have a break from Xeno games in general. Maybe they don't want to do an RPG next. Maybe they want to flex their muscles and, do something else, an open world adventure game, just no RPG elements. And Monolith Soft definitely, while they mainly have been making RPGs, they have helped Nintendo a lot with a surprising amount of Nintendo games. Stuff like Breath of the Wild or Splatoon, they have been involved with. And I think even the latest Pokemon game, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, had a few Monolith Soft people helping out with the open world. So that's totally possible, I think. Another thing is that, hey, maybe they want to just do a new IP, completely new IP. And we kind of have seen some hints of this with the weird medieval fantasy looking concept art that was shown a few years ago, and we still don't know what that was about. So it could be that Monolith Soft, while finishing Xenoblade Chronicles 3, were also developing a new IP at the same time, and I think that could be very exciting. Now moving on with Xenoblade Chronicles still, let's discuss spin-offs. I think spin-offs could be really cool for Xenoblade Chronicles. One of the most asked for spin-offs, I think, would be a Xenoblade Warriors game. We have had a lot of Warriors games for Nintendo franchises. Fire Emblem Warriors, Hyrule Warriors, and, there was also Persona Warriors, but that wasn't fully Nintendo, but it was still on the Switch. But I would definitely not mind a Xenoblade theme Warriors game, and I think could be really exciting. The problem here again is that Xenoblade Chronicles, while being surprisingly popular, is still kind of niche when it comes to franchises that usually get the Warriors treatment. I mean, Persona, Zelda, and Fire Emblem are vastly more popular. And another thing I would love to see from Xenoblade would be a Xenoblade style strategy game. I don't know why, but I would just love to see that. Moving on. Okay, so other Xenoblade stuff that could still happen in the future. And the first thing here is crossovers. Xenoblade is definitely not a stranger to having crossovers. I think Xenoblade was part of Project X Zone 2, which was a Bandai Namco developed game. Then, of course, you had the most famous one, which is Super Smash Bros. But if there would be a new Nintendo console coming out soon, and maybe they want to go full on with Smash Bros. Again, hey, maybe add, I don't know, Noah and Mio from Xenoblade Chronicles 3 again there for some reason. Why not? The characters are fun to use in Smash Bros., so could be cool. So I am an idiot and I forget to read stuff that is clearly in my notes, but in this section I forgot to say that, hey, Monolith Soft helped a lot with Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and thanks to that help, they put a Rex costume, Rex of course being from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, into the game. Here's a picture of Link wearing a Rex costume. So hey, maybe we will see something in Tears of the Kingdom that is coming out in a few weeks. Something Xenoblade related over there. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Back to your video, whatever. And then, what about other mediums? Could there be Xenoblade Chronicles visible in other stuff? Well, the most thought about, I think, is a Xenoblade Chronicles film or a TV show. And in my opinion, the better fit here would be a TV show. Because just Xenoblade Chronicles in its entirety is it's a very long and complicated story, and I don't want Hollywood executives or whatever try to cram all of that lore, all of that story, all of that character development into like 2 hours, because Xenoblade Chronicles games usually are like what, 80, 90 more? They're very long, so I don't think that could work as live action so much. Definitely possible, but would be a challenge. Another thing against live action is that I don't want Chris Pratt to play Shulk. But I would think a better fit for a Xenoblade Chronicles media would be an animated show that could go as long as it wants to. And I think that could be fairly interesting to see. And one of the final things I would like to see for the Xenoblade Chronicles franchise is a comic or manga adaptation. And just to say, a surprising amount of Nintendo franchises do have a manga. This includes stuff like Splatoon, Pokemon of course, Metroid, Zelda games, and just so many more. And I think it would be very interesting to see the story of Xenoblade Chronicles, the whole trilogy, either novelized, made into a comic book or a manga, or just have it somewhere in book form. Because the story is very interesting, but the games can be sometimes a bit hard to get, even though they are now all on the Switch. But it is a huge commitment, so I would love a way for fans to get to know the characters and get to know the story a bit easier. And I think even if you have gone through Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2, and all 3, it would still be an interesting way to read through the story once again, just to, remind yourself what the games were about if you haven't played them for a while, or just because you just love the franchise or something. And the final thing I want to mention is that it's probably going to get like merchandise or some shit. I don't know. Anyways, what do you guys think about this video? What do you think will happen in the future of Xenoblade Chronicles? Let me know down in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.